In this segment, we're going to talk about what franchising is and what makes franchising work. Quite simply, franchising is the creation of a specialized distribution model. It's a business model designed to gain and keep disproportionate market share, to build brand equity, capture market dominance, and this is done far more quickly than if a company were to expand corporately instead of through franchising. A franchise is a business license for a set period of time, and that time is usually in 5-year terms or 10-year terms, and you also have renewable terms thereafter, where you get to use the name and the trademarks of that franchise for the life of the relationship, while also using the proven systems of the franchise to sell the product or service that the franchisor provides. Now, the franchisor offers all of this to you in exchange for an initial franchise fee and ongoing royalties. The initial franchise fee is usually in the range of $25,000 to $75,000, but please understand that this is not the complete part of the investment. This is only the franchise fee. Depending on the rest of the business, can be a much bigger investment. The franchisor also charges for ongoing royalty fees. These royalties are usually taken as a percentage of gross sales or are on a flat monthly fee, and they're paid regardless if you're profitable or not. One of the most common questions I get is, Gary, what is a fair royalty rate? Well, unfortunately, that's a very difficult question to answer because it's all about the value. I've seen franchisors that are charging 4% royalty and aren't doing a lot for the franchisees, so I think they're ripping the franchisees off. I've also seen franchisors that charge 14% royalty and are providing a tremendous amount of value to the franchisee. The better question to be asked is, how much value am I getting for the royalty dollar the franchisor is asking me to pay? And the only people who can accurately answer that question are the existing franchisees. So you want to talk to enough franchisees. We recommend 8 to 10 franchisees so that you can get a balanced perspective, get their experience of how much value they're receiving. You may have seen this saying before. It's a very common saying, but it's also very true. Franchising is about being in business for yourself, but not by yourself. Franchisors are a hybrid between the corporate executive, where there's a tremendous amount of support and structure, and the completely independent operator. You have some independence with a franchise, but you have proven systems and processes, and in effect, some of a safety net. So you're not by yourself. You have the systems and processes to ensure a more stronger likelihood of success. Now let's look at some of the reasons as to why franchising works. Franchising, as we previously said, is a proven and systematic approach to starting and staying in business. First, let's look at experience. As a new franchisee, you'll be benefiting from a massively consolidated experience base and an exponential learning curve. This comes from, first, a combination of knowledge and experience of all of the leadership on the executive team. Then it's all of the experience and knowledge of all the franchisees that have gone before you. The franchisor harvests that consolidated learning curve and all of that information and continues to capitalize on it by improving and systematically optimizing the business systems and processes. That enables you to avoid some critical mistakes and also enables you to do the right things at the right time as you're launching your business. Next is simplicity. Because you're working with proven systems and processes, it's that much more simple to run. As compared to starting a business from scratch, you have to figure everything out on your own. Next is initial training and ongoing support. You're going to be guided and supported through the most difficult phase, which is startup, and then as you grow in your business, the franchisor is going to adjust that training and coaching, and that's where the ongoing support is so that you can grow and perform to the levels that you're capable of. Next is sales, marketing, and operational systems. Depending on the business that you're buying, there might be name recognition, but you've also got the sales and the marketing and the operating systems to help you launch that business faster and achieve higher levels of success because of those systems. A really big one and often overlooked is the culture of teamwork. As I previously mentioned, the business family is going to be part of your support network. In good franchise systems, there's a culture of teamwork amongst the franchisor and amongst the franchisees. Everybody's on the same team, going in the same direction, so there's a lot of support, there's a lot of synergy, there's a lot of sharing of information, When you need additional help, often it's your fellow franchisees that have faster answers than the franchisor. For all of the components listed here, and for several others, can you start to see how the franchisor helps you to become an expert business operator faster and with less risk than operating a business from scratch? We think so. Let's talk about disproportionate market share for a moment, because that's another reason why franchising works. This data is taken from an industry study done on franchising by the Canadian Franchise Association in 2018. There are over 1 million small businesses in Canada, small business being companies with under 100 employees. There are only 78,000 franchise units in Canada, so 78,000 of 1 million is your 7%. That 7% of small business in Canada captures 17% of the total gross domestic product generated by all small businesses in Canada. That's what we mean by disproportionate market share. One of my personal metaphors is that I believe that franchising is like the HOV lane of business. Think about this. Have you ever been jammed in traffic? You're in heavy traffic and you're by yourself in the car. You're sitting in the slow traffic, and over to the left is the high occupancy vehicle lane, and people are going by zoom, zoom, zoom. What are you thinking? I bet you're thinking, gee, I wish I had one more person in my car. Think about what it took to create express lanes or HOV lanes. It took a lot of planning and infrastructure to build. There are rules that have to be abided by. Buses, taxis, a certain number of people in the car, lanes that you can't cross over, all of those different things. And vehicles in those lanes are almost always going faster, more efficiently, and getting to their destination, dare I say, with less stress than the people who are stuck in the slower lanes. I strongly believe that when you pick a good franchise that's a solid match for you, then you enter the express lane of small business. In good franchising, the franchisor is that extra person in the vehicle with you. They've often invested a lot of money, often hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars in their business and systems over time. And based on that consolidated learning curve and the knowledge of senior management that we just talked about, all of that infrastructure, all of those efforts help to get you to your destination faster and more successfully. You're running your business more efficiently, you've got less stress, you've got less risk than your non-franchise competitors. When we talk about going faster than your non-franchise competitors, there's three main time compression points that I want you to be thinking about. The first that franchisors help you with is from time of signing your franchise agreement to time of opening. See, if you start a business from scratch, you got to figure everything out. If you buy a franchise, the franchisor is going to tell you what you have to do first, what type of location you need, what architect, what the planogram, all those different things are as you get close to opening, what type of staff you need, and so on and so on. Then you open the business. The next compression point is when you open the business to break even. This is about getting the name out in the marketplace, building the relationships, hiring the right people, doing all the right things so that you start building awareness for your business. Once you've hit break even, now you're getting to the next compression point, which is getting from break even to full stride. The franchisor has helped you build and launch the business and build a strong foundation. Now they're going to help you optimize the business. How do you scale up your business? What additional staff do you need? Where do you focus additional marketing? How do you add additional customers or get more business from existing customers? All of these different things create a faster launch for you in each of those three compression points. Because of the proven operating systems and processes that we've been talking about, many franchisees are able to get to a higher level of profitability per revenue dollar and get there faster. Simply put, when done correctly, you get on an accelerated and proven path that enables a faster break even and higher profitability in your business as compared to a non-franchised independent competitor. Franchising is also a proven vehicle to help you get to your destination while maintaining your lifestyle and financial goals, and doing so with less stress because you're not always trying to figure everything out. You've got that team to help you and build the support, so you've got that safety net. With the combination of all of these factors, Combined with lots of historic data, franchising creates a proven way to reduce your risk for getting into and launching your own business. Most of our clients tell us that they look to franchising because of the lower risk and because it's a managed risk process because of the amount of information they can get through research. We're now going to talk about the franchise disclosure document. This is one of the very unique things about franchising is the amount of information that gets disclosed that you can only get in franchising. You simply can't get it in starting a business from scratch or buying an existing business. The franchise disclosure document is a critical component of franchise research in Canada, and we carefully guide each client through learning about the franchise disclosure document when they get to that stage of their research. We can literally talk about this subject for over an hour, but for the purposes of today's discussion, we're only going to touch on a few key aspects of the disclosure document. It's very important to understand that the franchisor's requirement to provide you with the franchise disclosure document is driven by franchise law in most Canadian jurisdictions, and a lot is based on consumer protection. The franchisor has to provide you with a tremendous amount of transparency about the material facts of their franchise business model. Remember, franchise organizations are no different than many of the corporations that most people have worked for. Some are great and have really great leadership, some are good, and some not so much. With the franchise disclosure document, you get to look under the hood of that business and get far more insight about the franchise than any other opportunity. So let's talk about some of the information you can see. First, there's information about the franchisor. How long the franchisor has been in business and what the experience of the leadership team is. You want to make sure that there are enough people on the team that have franchise industry experience, not just operating industry experience. You get to see all aspects of litigation over the last 10 years, whether it was initiated against the franchisor by the franchisee or against the franchisee by the franchisor, or is it more brand protection type of litigation where the franchisor is defending their brands and trademarks against non-franchise parties who are violating their rights. Those are things that you want to know, and you get to see all of the litigation that's taken place in the franchise disclosure document over the last 10 years. Another important part of the franchise disclosure document is the financial statements of the franchisor. The franchisor has to provide their most recent annual financial statements because it's important for you to understand what the financial strength of that organization is. Costs and what the total investment is a really important part of the franchise disclosure document. This will include what the initial franchise fees are. It will include all costs for setting up the business, including build out, including marketing, anything that helps you understand what it's cost to build that business and get it open. It also includes a statement of what the working capital costs are. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. The franchise disclosure document has a sample of the franchise contract, so you know by reviewing that what are the rights and obligations that you have and what are the rights and the obligations that the franchisor has. The franchise disclosure document creates a level playing field. It provides the same information in the same format to everyone considering a purchase franchise within that specific franchise system. When it comes to earnings claims, franchisors have to be very careful about what they can tell you and about how much money you can earn in the business. Some franchisors provide a very detailed breakdown of their franchisees' unit economics, profitability, things like that, but that's rare. What you're going to find is most franchisors provide partial information. The information contained in this section of the disclosure document is the only information the franchisor is allowed to talk to you about at any time of your research when it comes to prospective earnings. So it's therefore critical you talk to enough existing franchisees to hear what their earnings experience is and what type of work they've had to do to create that income. Franchise disclosure documents also include information about territory. Some franchisors have very specific territory boundaries, while some franchisors have no territory protection. Whatever the territory model is, it has to be disclosed in the disclosure document. You've heard me talking about the importance of talking to existing franchisees. Well, every franchise disclosure document has to include a list of name, address, contact number of all existing franchisees in the system in Canada. This is where you get that information from. It also has to include past franchisees, people who have either closed or failed in the past 3 years. The final area I will comment on regarding the franchise disclosure document is term renewal and termination policies. When it comes to the term, you want to know what the length of the term is. Is it 5 years, 10 years? Also, how many renewal options do you have? Some franchisors have one renewal option. Some franchisors have a number of renewal options. And what the renewal conditions are. What are the transfer conditions? A transfer comes into play when you transfer your business to a family member or when you sell the business to a third party. So you want to understand what those transfer conditions and requirements are. And termination policies. What termination policies are triggered and when? Termination can be triggered by the franchisor if you default certain aspects of the business. You can also terminate the franchise agreement, and it will state in here what those termination conditions are. As you can see, there's a tremendous amount of information that's contained in the franchise disclosure document, and that's simply not available in businesses that are start from scratch or buying an existing business. This level of transparency is one of the factors that helps you mitigate your risk. This concludes the subject of Franchising 101. In the next segment, we're going to talk about some of the myths and misconceptions about franchising.